And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Jazzmeia Horn, her biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about some of her best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. Starting off with 2021's Dear Love, recorded with her 15-piece band, her Noble Force. Jazzmeia wrote, arranged and conducted the entire project, using lush horn arrangements and rhythmic drive to explore themes of empowerment, love and resilience. Tracks like Strive and Love Letter showcase her orchestral vision. On Noble Force Live in Europe, the band goes live. Improvisation soars, horns call and answer, and Jazzmeia pushes the ensemble to exhilarating heights. You can feel the energy and spontaneity in every note. Then she goes spiritual with the spiritual songbook, blending gospel, spirituals and jazz. Here her voice honors her roots by showing depth and meditative power. Finally, the Artistry Sessions Volume 1 gives listeners a glimpse of her experimental side, mixing fusion textures, global rhythms and creative studio explorations. Together, these four albums define an era where Jazzmeia Horn expands jazz boundaries, takes command of her music, and proves herself as a fearless visionary shaping the sound of modern jazz. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Jazzmeia Horn, her biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about more of her best albums of all time. So moving past her breakout recordings and into the era where she becomes something rare, not just a vocalist but a full-scale architect of sound. And to understand that transformation, we begin with what many critics call her most ambitious project yet, Dear Love, the first album recorded with her own big band, her Noble Force. This is the sound of Jazzmeia Horn growing wings. Released in 2021, Dear Love is not just a big band record, it's a manifesto. She wrote it, she arranged it, she conducted it. She shaped every color of the horn lines, every harmonic shift. It's one thing to scatter your way through bebop changes, it's another thing entirely to command a 15-piece ensemble and make the music move like it's one organism. From the very first track, you can hear it, the confidence, the depth, the intention. She weaves spoken word monologues into tight arrangements, preaching empowerment, self-worth, community and survival. Tracks like Strive and Love Letter aren't just songs, they're declarations. Jazzmeia uses the might of the orchestra to say what cannot be said with words alone. And on Where We Are, she rides over the horns like a breeze over a restless sea, shifting rhythms, pulling the band forward. The album earned her a third Grammy nomination, introduced her not just as a singer, but as a composer with a signature. But if Dear Love is the architectural blueprint, then Noble Force Live in Europe is the living, breathing structure, the moment you walk inside the cathedral. Recorded during the ensemble's first European tour, this album captures a band that feels like it's running on voltage. The horns are sharper, the percussion more aggressive, the solos wilder. Jazzmeia herself stretches into new improvisational territory, not just vocally but emotionally. You can hear her pushing the band and the band pushing her right back. There's a moment on the live version of He Could Be Perfect where she suddenly shifts into a percussive vocal break, half scat, half rap, all rhythm, and the trombones hit a counterline that almost knocks the audience out of their seats. Next up, we turn the dial into something softer, deeper, more private, the spiritual songbook. This record is Jazzmeia's return to her roots, gospel, hymns and the sacred spaces of her childhood. But she doesn't deliver these songs with wide-eyed nostalgia. She delivers with maturity and a kind of meditative gravity. Her interpretation of spirituals like Deep River and Wade in the Water feels like a dialogue between past and present. You can hear the church in her phrasing, the blues in her breathing, the jazz in her harmonic choices. And on original pieces like Open the Gates, she blends spiritual poetry with modal jazz voicings, creating a sound that feels ancient and new at the same time. So this album isn't about fireworks, it's about foundation. It's the sound of a singer standing in full possession of her history. Then we shift gears again into the rehearsal room, into the lab, into the creative workshop with the Artistry Sessions Volume 1. This album is part experiment, part document. Recorded with a rotating cast of young New York musicians, these sessions show Jazzmeia at her most curious. She plays with vocal texture, she bends odd time signatures, she tries new rhythms, new styles, new studio techniques. Tracks like Rhythm of the Mind slide into modern jazz fusion, with electric keys and angular horn lines. Mother's Tongue dips into Afro-Latin phrasing. Dreamwalker floats through open harmony like a meditation. A glimpse into the sketches that may become her next major era. And when you look at these four albums together, Dear Love, the European live recordings, the spiritual projects and artistry laboratories, you see something remarkable. Jazzmeia Horn is no longer just performing jazz, she's shaping its future. And that was some insight into more of Jazzmeia Horn's best albums of all time, and this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. Listen Man. Stanley Jordan featuring Novecento with Too Close to the Sun, Hiroshima with Timekeeper, Django Reinhardt with Anniversary Song, and Jazzmeia Horn with Social Call. And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Jazzmeia Horn, her biography and best hits. Now it's time for some trendy music news. So this one's something exciting from New Zealand's finest. A new quintet album has just dropped and it's bursting with talent, history and next level chemistry. Longtime collaborators Ben Wilcock and John Ray, the creative minds behind Thick Records New Zealand, have put together a dream team for this project. Recorded at the iconic Roundhead Studios in Auckland, the lineup includes legendary New Zealand bassist Patrick Bleakley, tenor titan Roger Manings and rising guitarist Theo Thompson, who brings a fresh modern shimmer to the mix. This album is all about deep conversation through sound, years of shared performances turning into music that feels personal, organic and totally alive. So this album is available on all streaming platforms. Turn it up, feel the energy and let New Zealand's finest take you for a ride. And there was some trending album news on the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. We are going for a short break, we'll be right back after that. When we come back, we're going to talk about more of Jazzmeia Horn's best albums of all time. Stay tuned. And you're tuned into the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Jazzmeia Horn, her biography and best hits. During this hour, we're going to be talking about more of her best albums of all time. Here's a quick recap of what's coming up. First up, Voices of the Diaspora takes her across continents, from African polyrhythms to Caribbean spirituals, Brazilian percussion and classic jazz. Tracks like Sankofa Woman and River of Bone show her cultural storytelling and diasporic vision, connecting history to modern sound. Then her Live in Johannesburg album captures a world quartet in full flight. Singing in English, Yoruba and Portuguese, she trades rhythmic phrases with her band, and the audience call and response turns every performance into a celebration. The Neo-Soul sessions brings her closer to contemporary grooves, blending jazz, neo-soul and R&B. With salty tracks like Velvet Skyline and Body Electric, she proves her versatility, reshaping classic songs and original material with intimate phrasing. Finally, the cinema project Jazzmeia Horn Sings a Silver Screen shows a theatrical side, reinventing film themes and composing original cinematic jazz. Chasing Midnight and City of Glass create sweeping moods and emotional storytelling. These four albums reveal Jazzmeia Horn as a global innovator, a genre blend and a cinematic storyteller, a vocalist whose artistry transcends boundaries and reshapes jazz for a new generation. During this hour, we're going to be talking about more of her best albums of all time. We begin with one of her most culturally ambitious works, Voices of the Diaspora. This album is a tapestry woven from African rhythms, Caribbean spirituals, Brazilian percussion, American jazz harmony and the unbroken thread of black musical history. Jazzmeia steps into the role of cultural messenger, using her voice not just as an instrument but as a bridge across continents. Tracks like Sankofa Woman blend West African polyrhythms with gospel melisma. The feature on Aja's Lament, recorded with musicians from Lagos, Rio and New York, becomes a sonic conversation across the Atlantic. This album showcases Jazzmeia Horn as a global voice, carrying history forward with fierce elegance. Next, we shift to the electricity of her world quartet, captured in Live in Johannesburg. If the big band era revealed her as an arranger, this record reveals her as a rhythmic explorer. The quartet, piano, bass, drums and West African percussion gives her room to stretch, twist and improvise with freedom. She sings in English, Yoruba, Portuguese and wordless melody. The standout moment of the concert is Lionsgate, where Jazzmeia locks into a hypnotic 12/8 groove with her percussionist, trading rhythmic phrases like two dancers circling a fire. The South African audience responds with call and response, transforming the track into a celebration. This is Jazzmeia not just performing globally, but belonging globally. Then we pivot into a different light, warm, electric, urban, contemporary with the Neo-Soul sessions. This project surprises people. It's not Jazzmeia abandoning jazz, it's expanding it. The album blends jazz harmony with Neo-Soul grooves, D'Angelo-style pocket drumming, and subtle hints of R&B. Her voice becomes smoky, intimate, playful. She covers neo-soul classics like Green Apples and Nothing Even Matters, reshaping them with harmonic twists and rhythmic layers. Her original track, Velvet Skyline, lives in a slow late-night groove, and then there's Body Electric, a sensual airy piece where her improvisation floats over a Rhodes keyboard in a hazy dream. What this album proves is simple. Jazzmeia Horn can step into any genre and make it feel like home. And we end with one of her most theatrical, imaginative creations, the cinema project, Jazzmeia Horn Sings a Silver Screen. Here, Jazzmeia reimagines iconic film themes, not with nostalgia but reinvention. She transforms Moon River into a slow-burning Afro-jazz ballad. She rebuilds A Kiss from a Rose as a modal jazz odyssey. But the heart of the album lies in her originals, written as if they were movie themes. Chasing Midnight feels like a thriller climax, sultry, mysterious. Wings of Tomorrow sounds like the closing credits of a coming-of-age film. So this project shows Jazzmeia as a storyteller, someone who paints scenes, moods and emotional landscapes with her voice. So when you put these four albums together, you see the full scope of her artistic reach. Cultural archivist in Voices of the Diaspora, global performer in Live in Johannesburg, genre blender, the Neo-Soul sessions and cinematic narrator in the cinema project. So this is the era where Jazzmeia Horn becomes more than just a jazz vocalist. She becomes an artist whose voice belongs everywhere, across cultures, across genres, across imaginations. And this is the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. On this week's episode, it's about Jazzmeia Horn, her biography and best hits. We've come to an end of this week's episode of the Jazz Update, so now it's time to recap what we were discussing during today's show. So born in Dallas back in 1991, raised on gospel music, Jazzmeia honed her craft at Booker T. Washington High School before heading to North Carolina Central University. Then she moved to New York, stepped on stage, and took the Thelonious Monk International Jazz Competition by storm. Since then, she's been unstoppable, world tours, Grammys, and a reputation as one of the most electrifying scat vocalists of her generation. Jazzmeia's top 5 must-hear albums. At number 1, the debut that lit it all up, A Social Call, Grammy-nominated and packed with a signature gospel jazz fusion. Number 2, Love and Liberation, more originals, more edge, more of that fearless horn energy. Number 3, Dear Love with her big band Noble Force, big sound, big messages, big heart. Number 4, Swingin' in Seattle, a live record that shows you exactly how she owns the stage. And coming in at number 5, the reflective standout Letters from a Horn proves she's got not just a voice, she's a storyteller. And that was a bit of insight into everything that we discussed on this week's episode of the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan De Silva. That brings me to an end of this week's episode of the program. Don't forget, you can check out the archives of today's show on my YouTube channel, the Weekend Jazz Update with Jashan. So I'll see you again next week. Have a great week ahead.